Hello my friends, welcome back to another tutorial. I hope you're all keeping very well out there. In this tutorial lesson I am going to paint a lovely moonlight scene over the ocean onto the sand. So a nice kind of a beach scene at night time with the moon up in the sky shining down on the waves coming across the sand. It's very eye-catching. Very limited palette, maybe 4 colours, very dark blue, blacky colours, and a nice bright white then just in the middle. So a nice simple tutorial for you to try. I hope you do follow me along. Grab your brushes and your canvases and just give it a try. Let's see what we can create with this lovely little scene. I'm using 16 by 12 canvas, that's all, a nice small one. We can get through it nice and quickly then. So that's it. I'm just going to prepare my palette, get my colours ready, and we'll crack on and have a bit of fun with this lovely little moonlit seascape. Don't go anywhere, I'll be right back. Okay my friends, let's do this. There is my canvas, there is the palette, and there is my reference photograph. I think that's quite nice, isn't it? We'll learn a lot about nighttime scenes in this. Let's give it a go and see what we can do. I'm going to tell you what colours I have. Titanium white, Naples yellow, magenta, phaylo blue, lamp black, burnt umber, and a little burnt sienna. Just a little, just in case we need for the sand colour. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some masking tape across the horizon line. So basically where the land meets the sky, I'm going to put a little piece of tape just across there. Let's pick a point. It's just above, it's just below halfway, isn't it, roughly? Give or take a little bit. So I'm going to go around here. Around here, I think, is probably good enough, don't you? Let's start with the sky. I'm going to take my large rough brush. Any kind of a large brush you have at all will do absolutely fine. And let's dampen that. And I just need to get some thinners. Let me put some thinners. I have turpentine with linseed oil mixed in. Just a little linseed oil. I primed my canvas once and I sanded it back very lightly, okay? Let's take a damp brush and I'm going to go straight in and go for some phaylo blue, a little lamp black and some magenta. I'm adding plenty of magenta into this. I just want to add a nice warmth to the painting, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to mix up a nice creamy kind of a texture there now, okay? Like a cream out of a tub, so to speak. So I'm just getting a nice rich, kind of a warm-ish blue. Let's paint that across. Now I'm going quite thin with my first mix, as I do most of the time. I'm just putting on a kind of a thin layer. It's really just to cover the canvas. That's the only reason, okay? Now a little bit more blue, maybe a bit more white. Getting slightly thicker. And put this on. Now you could, if you want, if you're not sure about these different kind of grades in colour, you could by all means just put on one layer of light blue and then soften your darks into that. If you wish, it's up to you, all right? I tend to kind of change as I'm going along, so I add a bit lighter, a bit darker, and so on. But it's completely up to you, really, which way you'd like to do this. Our goal here is to get from a light blue here up to a dark blue. That's our goal. That's what we're trying to achieve. So whichever way is more comfortable for you, you can do it like that. So let me just fill this all in now, just to cover, you know, just to cover the whiteness of the canvas. You could actually as well, come to think of it, if you want, you could tint your canvas a very light blue. That would help you along. I'm not a big fan of tinting canvases, and I'll tell you why. Because whatever you're painting on over the tint is going to show through the tint afterwards, if you know what I mean. So if I have a blue tint on this, it just makes it a little bit more tricky to get your colours right. That's all. Just a little bit tricky. But I prefer to paint on a white canvas. That's just the way I've always painted. That's just the way I like to paint. But by all means, if you would like to tint your canvas, you can do that as well. No problem. Now, a little bit of darker colour I'm getting just up here, okay? Phaylo blue, bit of lamp black, just those two, and I'm going to come up and just pop that up on the top, making it nice and deep, a nice deep colour. Soften it across, just to get rid of the brush strokes, that's all. And then as it comes down, I'm going to just start adding a bit more blue into the mix. So I'm going back over my first layer. My first layer is kind of drying into the canvas quite a lot. So I'm just simply going back over my first layer with this little bit of phthalo blue, some thinners as well. A little bit of thinners always helps, doesn't it? And a little magenta. And let's just simply soften that in, left and right, just to make it nice and soft. And you can leave these kind of lines on the canvas if you like as well. It's completely up to you. I think they're quite nice. Now, coming down here, let me just give my brush a quick clean, get some of that blue off. Let's take some white with phthalo blue. And let's just give it nice and bright down at the bottom here, okay? It's just a little bit of a glow, maybe some magenta. There's a nice kind of a glow just down at the horizon line, down here. And I'll just soften that back up, all right? And that's not bad. I could maybe go lighter again, a bit more white. Soften it back up. So we're nice and light now, just down at the horizon line. Okay, you can see we even almost have the impression of kind of soft clouds coming across the sky there, don't we? That's quite nice. And we could add a touch of one or two clouds in here as well, if we like, but I think we will. Let's just take a dry flat brush, take some of that light blue, it's kind of a bright blue, a little bit of white in there, not pure white, and let's just kind of go like this, look. I'm just kind of dabbing my brush here and there, just to create the impression of a couple of white clouds flicking across here and there, just with the corner of the brush. Nice and simple. And you can even soften it away with your finger as well, or a soft little blender brush, whatever you like. It's completely up to you. No, I think that's fairly good. I'm going to paint the moon next. And I simply just basically start with a very bright blue, okay? And we start creating the halo effect around the moon. So let's pick a point. Let's go slightly off center. Let's go here. Now let me just get a bit of phthalo blue in that. It needs to be a little bit richer in colour. And I'm just going to simply go around like this in circles, okay? And I'm going to very gently soften it outwards with my brush. Almost soften it back into the paint around the edge. Just take your time with doing this, okay? So we have a little bit of a halo there now. You could soften that back with your soft brush if you like. I don't think I will. I'm going to take some Naples yellow and white, because Naples yellow and white gives you a beautiful bright white. Try it sometime. We could go this crest, or we could make a full moon. It's completely up to ourselves now how we do this. I think I'll start first with just maybe a slightly full moon, right? And then I'll show you what I'm planning to do. So I get this kind of slightly full moon kind of softened in, right? So it's disappearing. And it's just a case of cleaning your brush. Just keep cleaning your brush with some tissue. So I have that now kind of fairly soft, isn't it? So that's kind of there now, fairly soft. And then I'll slowly introduce colour into the corner perhaps. Maybe just kind of going like this. What do you think? Now I'll probably go to a small pointy brush as well in a moment. But I'm thinking, you know, if I just start brightening one side of the moon and soften it kind of back in towards the centre. How about that? What do you think? There's a lot of different things we can try with this to get, you know, to get a nice effect. So we could kind of go one side, then take a small brush, small little pointy brush. Make sure it's nice and clean, that's very important, isn't it? And we'll take some white with some Naples yellow. And let's just paint in the outline of that kind of crest of the moon here. And how's that? And I'm going to soften it back into the rest of the moon then, just with the brush. Look, just kind of giving little flicks just to soften it back slightly. And that's not bad now so far, is it? And we can keep brightening this as much as we like. I'm going to put some Naples yellow into this. The Naples yellow just really brightens it up, doesn't it? It gives it that kind of a glow. I think it needs more, don't you? I think it does. Let's add a bit more onto that. Let's make it a bit stronger. How's that? That's not bad now, is it? I mean, you could go pure white with all of this now as well. It's up to ourselves. I want to create lots of light on the ocean, so the brighter we get this, the better, I think. That's what I'm thinking. And look, at the end of the video, if we don't like this, we can always just paint it completely white all the way around, can't we? It's completely up to us. So that's the lovely thing about painting. This is not set in stone at all. So I'll go with that for now. Let's put in some distant hills. I'm simply going to take a dark colour, some black and some blue, because these are in silhouette, aren't they? So I think just some black and some blue, maybe a touch of magenta again. These are kind of the three primary colours that I'm using for most of this painting anyway. And let's just, come on, let's just put something in here. Let's put in the suggestion of a bit of land off in the distance over there. I'm not going to copy this photograph exactly now, okay? I'm just going to go on my own. And there's another small bit next to it there. Then some black again, magenta, slightly more pinky, getting slightly darker up here. A really nice dark silhouette. And just simply put them in. Now I'm adding a bit of burnt umber into this as well. Make it nice and dark. And then I'll finish it with my small brush, just to refine the edges a bit more, that's all really. So I'm going to even take a bit of white with the blue and just off in the distance, soften, maybe soften that in just a little bit more. So it's just slightly faded. And let's just kind of pick out the edge a little bit more on that. And I'll do the same with just a dark colour here. I'm just going to pick out the edge, make it nice and rough. You see what I mean? Just making it nice and strong. A nice silhouette. By doing that, then you're kind of creating the illusion of a bit of detail as well at the same time. Now I am going to put a little suggestion of highlight on some of these ones in the distance. So perhaps, for instance, we'll put a little bit of light blue just around the edge up here to give it a little suggestion of highlight. We could also put a little bit on this side. I know we were saying that's going to be in silhouette, but look, why not? Let's add a bit of mist into this as well. Make it nice and misty, just down at the base. Simply take a bit of white, a bit of blue or something and just soften it from the base up and soften it in. You see? Just like that. Makes it nice and it gives a nice soft feeling. And there we go. Let's peel off our masking tape. And we have a nice clean edge to work, don't we? So let's start painting our water. Before I do that, I want to just sketch in where the waves are coming along like that. And then we have this bit of the sand down here where it meets kind of the wet sand. So it's wet sand with dry sand. And we have a kind of a suggestion then of some foam coming in like that. That's all I need to do, really. Let's start painting in the water. Let's take some phthalo blue, some white, some thinners, and let's just maybe start with that, okay? Go right up, push your brush up nice and high, get a nice straight edge, and bring it across. I will come down as far as here. And what I'm going to do with this now is the very same as what we did earlier with the sky. I'm just going to start adding darker shades to this. So I'm going to go for some phthalo blue, some magenta, maybe a touch of black. And start bringing that dark colour in from this side. Lift off. So it's going to be lighter where the moon hits the water, obviously. I'm just filling this all in this nice rich colour. So we have that in. Next, I suppose I could start adding different shades through the painting. I'm going to take a slightly smaller brush. I'm going to take some blue, a little bit of burnt umber, and some magenta. I'm going to go for this kind of browny, grey, pinky shade. And over here, I'm just going to start softening that in. Just a little bit here and there, look. Swooping across. Then where my water, you see the crest of the wave here, where that wave kind of comes down. Just going to put some along like that. This is all just filling in now, just the beginnings. Some blue, some white, some magenta. So it'll be more of a pinkyish kind of a shade. I'm now going to move to my flatter brush, because I don't think that bigger brush is working as well as I hoped, I'm going to get a nice strong dark colour. I'm going to start putting in some waves on this. So I'm going to grab some phthalo blue, magenta, and a touch of black again. Same three colours. It looks pretty black now, but it's kind of a deep blacky purple. And I'm just going to start picking out some waves. So we have a nice one up here. It comes down kind of in a slight curve and it goes back up thin again. Okay. And then we have one above that, a nice little small one. Just two little flicks like this. And I'm going to put one or two more then. Just suggest one or two more. Over here, and perhaps a little bit here. Just dot one or two around. They're kind of coming in and out of the painting, aren't they? And the one down at the bottom, down here, I'm going to kind of just fill that in with a dark shade first. Bring it across. Because they're always pretty much black and dark at the very front of the waves where they break. So a very dark line just along the front here like this. Okay. And then it's going to start lightening as it goes back up to the top of the crest. So then I'll just take some phthalo blue with some white and maybe a bit of magenta. And just start putting that shade on top of the black. Just wiggling it side to side, just like this. Okay. And I'll add even more white into it then. It's a lot of this is trial and error as well, believe it or not. You're just kind of trying something to see if it works. And if it doesn't, you try something else. I'm going to pop some nice rich blue in between these as well. Just little wiggles of my brush. Okay. It's all about just adding a gradient into your ocean. So little bits of lights, little bits of darks here and there. Do you know what I mean? That's what I kind of tend to do when I'm painting seascapes like this and a scene like this. So little wiggles with the brush, just kind of lightening it slowly here and there, creating a bit of movement. Now what I'm going to do is take a small round brush, okay, and maybe a little bit of white. There's a bit of blue in this as well. I'm going to just start getting white up on top of the crest of the wave first, right? Just like this. And then I'm going to kind of wiggle it and turn it down into the darker area. So you're basically making it all kind of move around. You're softening the two together. That's all you're doing really. And that creates this very kind of turbulent effect in your painting. Merge them together. So rather than having a dark line between them, I'm just softening them both together with this brush. You can use a bigger brush if you like now, but I'm just softening them together with this brush just for now. So that dark line is now being softened into the colour above it. Okay, that makes sense? And that's kind of the beginning of this crest of this wave then. Now you can go back to your slightly larger brush. Let's take some white and phthalo blue. You can use cobalt as well for this if you want. And we could just start lightening the very top of that. And let's make this a bit thicker up here with the corner of the brush. Look, I'm just simply dabbing with the corner of my brush and then kind of bringing it down into the dark as well. Kind of messing it up. You see what I mean? Look, just kind of dab, 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 dab. And that just, it creates a very kind of a random effect. Okay? That's all it does. It just creates a random sort of effect. And just kind of dab, dab, dab. But very sort of random, very up and down kind of a feeling, okay? It just creates lots of little dots. That's basically all I'm doing. I'm kind of creating lots of little dots in the wave. And that gives it the impression of, you know, this turbulence in the water. So that's coming on quite nicely now, isn't it? I'm then going to take some burnt umber with some black, and I'm going to go in here and just add a lot of dark colour. Here and there, you can see there's bits of shadow in under that wave as well, isn't there? So a little bit of burnt umber with black, and then I'm just kind of softening that back up through here and there as well. So you can see that gives you more depth, doesn't it? And what that does is, it plays off of the light side. So the lights are kind of bouncing off the darks and vice versa. So they bring each other out. That's all it is, really. So now you can see we have almost like the beginnings of a wave here now. I am now going to take a small little brush. Again, I'm going to go into some phaylo blue and lots of white. And I'm going to start lightening these little waves up high. So I'm just going to start adding little touches of this colour to these waves. So up on top of the waves, look, let's just give it a bit of a wiggle and bring it off so it disappears into the colour underneath. It's all about just softening lights into darks, that's all. Okay? So these are just the highlights on top of this crest of the wave, which is about to kind of turn over, I suppose you could say. It's just about to turn. And I'm just catching some of these lights now up on top of this. And then I'm going to just go into a nice bright colour, a nice whitey blue. And just around the centre where the moon is, I want to just start popping that in here and there. Just dragging it along with my brush. Okay, just like that. And this is the beginning now. This is the very beginning of us getting this nice brightness. So let's move on down here and get this nice bright colour down around here. I'll start with just white, I think. We'll just go into some white and we'll simply, maybe a bit of thinners as well, yes? Let's thin this out nice and thin. Help it move around a bit better. And I'm just simply going to kind of wiggle it side to side. Creating movement. You see what I'm doing? I'm just kind of flicking the brush off to the sides. Softening it out, but it's very thick then just in the middle here. And just play around with this now and have a bit of fun. Because you'll be very surprised what happens when you're doing this. Now, another way you can do this to create, you know, a nice bit of richness is just grab a palette knife. Just go for a palette knife. Go right into some white. And you could just drag this down as well. Just in the centre, just drag it down. And that does create a nice effect too, doesn't it? But this is all something that you'll just learn as you go along and practice. Let's go up here and add some of that with the palette knife along on top of these. So just creating nice rich light up here. Side to side, like so. And we can go in right in here as well. I'm going to just cut across what I just did, okay? Just going to cut across it just to create some more texture in the water, like so. Now we must come down and do our sand, and we have little, little bits of break in the water here as well, and we have lots of little lights and darks here, so we still have a nice little bit left to do, don't we? Let's try it. Come on, let's get some of this lighter blue colour and just wiggle the brush left and right down here, just at the edge of the brush, okay? Just with the corner of the brush, just little wiggles, look, side to side, and let's just have a bit of fun. We can soften all of this back as well. Just look, flicking the brush into the light here and there. Just make it nice and soft around the edges. Then I'm going to take some slightly darker colour, some black and some phthalo blue, and come in under here and soften these out as well, just a little bit. As if almost like it's creating its own little reflection. That's all. I'm simply just softening them, making it nice and soft. Okay, I need to get this line done in here with that little break in the water, all right? Before I do that, I'm going to paint in this kind of wet sand. Now people get nervous about painting wet sand. It's actually, it's quite simple, right? Let me show you. So I'm going to take my small pointy brush and just suggest first a line of dark, okay? So a small brush, plenty of turpentine, black colour, nice and dark, and we'll just first paint in you see that very dark line that we have just behind the foam breaking. We paint that line in first, okay? Just very, very loosely now. Don't be trying to get this absolutely perfect. Like that. So now we know where the sand meets that water there, okay? So that's the actual water, and this is the sand down here. Let's make a nice kind of a sandy colour. I'm going to start with some phthalo blue, some white. I'm going to take burnt umber and a touch of magenta. So I'm going for a kind of a pinky brown shade first. Now I know it's different on the photograph, but I'm going to just start like this first, okay? As a sort of a base colour. Maybe touch of naples yellow as well even. Make it nice and soft, look. So we have a kind of a wet sandy colour going on. Let's paint that in. Again, a bit more burnt umber, a bit of magenta. Going for this kind of a pinky brown shade. That dark line was just a guide, that's all it was, okay? Just a guide for me. We'll go up a little bit higher with this. We can move this around all we want. So we have this kind of nice dark sandy colour, don't we? And I then want to start putting a nice darker colour in here. You see the way it kind of disappears off into the water up here. Let's just take some blue, magenta and some white, and let's just simply soften that, a bit more blue now, let's just get a nice bluey shade. Let's soften that into the sandy colour, okay? So you can see now I'm going to bring the two together and leave them soften away up here. So you can see it's just almost sort of disappearing into the water, isn't it? I'm going to use that bluey colour as well, just to come along here. Now it gets very dark down on the left, doesn't it? Magenta, phaylo blue, and a little burnt umber. It gets quite dark just down here, and soften it back in. Okay? So you're going on with a brown first, then you're adding your blues into it. And simply, for this dark section, let's take some burnt umber, some black, and some magenta. And let's just paint this piece like this. Okay? So now we see we have these lovely little layers, different layers going on. And along this line where they meet, I'm simply going to put some blue and white. Phaylo blue with some white. And along where they meet, I'm just going to bring some phaylo blue and white like this. Give it a little wiggle. Just like that, okay? And then just where the moon hits, because this is very important, everywhere the moon hits is going to be brighter, isn't it? So again, phaylo blue and a lot of white. Just where the moon is, let's draw an imaginary line down here for the moon, and let's just go along here with some brighter colour. And soften it either way. Okay? Now, so far so good. And that's not too bad now, is it? We're getting there slowly. I'm going to take some phaylo blue and white again and just start lightening along the sand. Where the moon is hitting. And again, you can go back and use your palette knife for this. So I'm just going to grab a small palette knife here. Small one for a change. And I'm just going to start popping in a little bit of white here and there. Just to suggest nice, bright edges catching the sand just there, okay? And that's coming on quite nice now, isn't it? The next thing I'm going to just do is take some pure white. And I might even get some Naples yellow actually as well. Yes, let's get some Naples yellow with white. That will give us a very luminous, very bright luminous white. Almost like a bright yellow. And let's just pop that in here and there to suggest the brightness of the moon. Now, doesn't that really liven that white up? It really brings it to life, doesn't it? Another little bit just around here. And you can just do all this dabbing with the knife. Let's go again. This is a lot of fun, painting something like this. Just be very careful not to create any greens, because you're putting yellow and white onto a palette where there's a lot of green, a lot of blue. So if you pick up the slightest bit of blue, it's going to end up going kind of a greeny colour. So make sure you've plenty of clean white on your palette. Okay? Now, white Naples yellow. A nice bright white colour. And we can just start picking out some nice light areas up here where we want them to really stand out. Here, for example, just along there, top of that wave. Okay, isn't that really starting to come to life now? Little bits here and there, just hitting the tops of that wave. Maybe a tiny bit out on the edges out here, where they're just kind of catching the waves, but not too much. Does that make sense? And we need to just finish this kind of dark line that we were starting earlier on. I'm just really having a bit of fun with this now. And I just want to be careful not to overdo this, because you can very easily overdo all of this. I'm going to go back and just bring this line back in again. So let's grab some phaylo blue, a little bit of magenta, some black, get ourselves a nice rich blacky colour, and just start putting that in. Again, just reinforcing that line. So you can see this now starting to come together, and we can kind of maybe go around in a kind of a circle here, bring it back in and leave it disappear off into that colour up there. Let's just leave it disappear. Like so. I'm then going to just put a light blue along the top of that line that I just painted. So a nice light blue. Let me just, it takes time to find the right shade of blue for this. You don't want to go too light, you don't want to go too dark. Just enough that it stands out. You see what I mean? Just like this, look. Just enough that it just stands out from the darks and the lights. It does take a little bit of practice, this. Then I'm going to bring those light blues back into this water over here. Look, a couple of wiggles here and there, just so it looks like it's moving. It's kind of moving water, isn't it? So a couple of wiggles here and there, just generally very loose. And all it's doing is just adding, again, a bit of movement into the painting. That's all it is. And how is that looking? And I would say not too bad at all, my friends. Not too bad at all. I'm going to just darken some of these here and there, as if they're creating a little bit of a shadow, possibly. And I'm also going to just lighten across where the moon hits this little bit of sand down here. I think I'll just maybe lighten that ever so slightly with a small round brush and some light blue, and I'll just go along like this. And then I'll go back over for some brighter colour. Just like so. And so far, I think this is coming on quite nice, don't you? I'm going to lighten along inside some of these. Just going to kind of soften them back down slightly. And then I'm going to put some nice strong colour just up underneath them, just to pick them out a little bit more. And I'll add a bit more of a brighter blue then, just on top of this wave up here. Maybe just suggest some highlights catching it from the moon, okay? Just Look, a couple of small highlights here and there. And this is only a suggestion, really. It's, you know, I'm not trying to paint anything in detail here. It's just a very loose suggestion of highlights. And you can, by doing this, you can create a really nice impression in your scene. Just a simple impression of movement on the waves. Okay? I think that's absolutely fine, my friends. I don't see anything wrong with that. There is one bit of a cliff coming in here, isn't there? That wasn't bad for, what, 44, 45 minutes? I don't think that was that bad, really, was it? That was a nice painting in 40 minutes. Let's bring this one in over here. That will just give us a little bit of scope and a bit of distance for everything else. So if we bring this one now just down below the horizon line, like this, it just helps push everything else off, doesn't it? And we'll just go nice and dark up around there. And we'll just take a bit of phthalo blue and we'll soften that dark section just into the water, little wiggles, just to help it sit down, because you don't want it to look like it's just sitting there and floating in midair, do you? So we'll just bring a little bit of that dark colour, soften it back down into the water underneath, creating that little bit of reflection or shadow, anything, whatever you like to call it, just over here on this side. And my friends, I think we are there. What do you think? I'm quite happy with this. You can mess around with this now all you like. I'm going to just soften a few bits back in with the tip of my finger, just to push them back a little bit, that's all. But you can, of course, you can keep going with this as much as you want. I am just going to refine in under here just a little bit more, make it a little bit more sharper. There. And possibly take some black and some blue and just darken maybe just in around here as well, just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit to separate it a bit more from the water underneath. And I'm quite happy with that. I'm thinking I should lighten the moon just a little bit more. I think I should. I want to create more of a halo around the moon. So should we try and create more of a halo? I think we should. I think it needs it. I'm going to take some white and some blue. And this is where this could all go completely wrong. All right, it could go wrong. So I'm taking a chance, and you're seeing this live on camera. So I'm just going to take a chance. I'm going to get some blue, some white, and I'm going to create a halo effect around the moon. I think it needs to be softened back into the sky a little bit more, with more of a halo. So here we go. You've watched it live. If it all goes completely wrong, I will hold my hands up and say I've made a terrible decision. But you won't know until you try. That's the thing with painting. If you don't try it, you're never going to know. I'm just going to soften some blue around, all the way out until it sort of disappears. I'm going to keep going until I feel it's enough, which is difficult to know in itself. I'm going to just soften the moon away, inside, soften it back out. Okay, this is where it can go completely wrong. It really can. I'm just going to soften this back around the edge with my fingertip. I don't want to use a brush because I will take off the paint That's already there. So far so good. Then I'm just going to paint a white moon. I think the crescent is just not enough to give us that lightness on the sky or on the ocean. I don't think it's enough. So I'm just going to paint a little circle. I want to paint a nice little moon right in the middle of this. I'm going to soften this one back out now again slightly, okay? So I start with that. Then I will go slightly thicker with my white again. Now, there is another technique you can do for this, which is dabbing. I'm simply going to dab with the corner of my brush. Dab a white circle just in the middle of all of this. And soften it out. Dab, 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 all the way around. That too gives you this nice effect. A very hazy effect. And again, you might have your own ways of doing this. But I just like using simple techniques, I'll be honest. A nice thick bit of white just in the middle then. I think that's probably a bit better, don't you? I think it's slightly nicer than what we had before. I think it is. Let me know what you think. A little bit of Naples yellow and white just in the middle to really show off the brightness of that moon right in the centre. And there we are, my friends. I think that's a bit nicer. I'm going to go with that. So with that, I am going to say thank you so much for watching. It's been a huge pleasure. It really has. I could kind of doodle away with this now, and forgive me, I might just add a little bit of light on some of the hills back here. Just a little suggestion of highlight from the moon. Maybe a little bit here. You know, it's up to yourself. You don't have to do all this. You really don't. It's up to yourself. But I think I'm finished. And that, my friends, is my tutorial on a moonlit kind of beach sort of a scene. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. There we go. And it's just a nice simple scene, isn't it? So, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed watching me paint this. I'm quite happy with that. That would look, I think, stunning with a bright white frame around it. So I'll frame it and I'll show you what it looks like when it's finished. Also, we did a lovely still life. It's over there. We did it on Patreon. I think you might like it. It turned out really well. Should I show you? Let me take a look. I'll show you. I'll turn the camera around and show you this lovely still life, which we did. And it's just there. Sorry, now let me just fix this camera here for a moment. It's all over the place. There we are. We did this over on Patreon not so long ago. So, if you're looking to learn something like that, which is quite nice, I think, do pop over and take a look. It turned out very nice, I have to say. So I'm very happy with that. But in the meantime, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a huge pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed watching. And I'll be back next week with another tutorial. Yes. Maybe a nice still life next week for you as well. Thank you very much. God bless, happy painting. I'll see you very soon. And if you have any questions, please do just ask. Send me an email or leave a comment, okay? I'll do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. Take care and happy painting.